Assalamu alaikum. My name is Javier Mencia. Um, my parents are from Honduras, but I grew up in uh, Concord, Charlotte area. So I've been here for a while, since about 2005. Um, the way I came to Islam was basically, I grew up Christian, kind of grew up having to go to church on Sundays. My mom told me I got to go to church on Sundays. But it was never really it was never kind of it was serious, but it wasn't serious as in like it was a cultural thing more than a religious thing. So as I got a little older, I had a lot more questions, and I didn't have people around me to answer those questions, so a lot of them went unanswered. So I kind of, at a certain age, I think around middle school, I decided I wasn't Christian anymore. Kind of took up more of an atheist belief, and in that, obviously, kind of at that age, you're curious and think about a bunch of stuff. So I got into Eastern religion, like Taoism and Buddhism and stuff like that. Got into different philosophical ideas like Stoicism and nihilism and all kinds of stuff. And then lastly, I got into Islam. Went to Barnes and Noble and went to buy a bunch of books and got a Quran, and it sat on my shelf for a few months.
Mm.
But one day I picked it up and read the first verse, and seeing the similarities with Christianity, but that made a lot more sense. And researching a lot about Prophet Isa and how he is a prophet. He's not God, which I never believed he was God. I believed he was a person to learn from, an example. But I didn't really understand the concept of making a man a god. So that kind of resonated with me. And then just more research, and then probably my son being born kind of opened my eyes, and I started asking a lot more questions about life, because that's a serious thing to happen. And kind of, I believe about, he was a 1.5, and I decided to come to FCC for the first time, and took my shahada about 2 or 3 weeks after that. So I mean, it's been about 2 years now, so still early in the journey, but inshallah it's gonna be a lot more knowledge and fruit to come from this journey.
All right. What would you say to someone who is struggling with their current beliefs, but is scared or hesitant or nervous to explore new beliefs? What would you say to a person in that situation?
I would say, if you're struggling in your current belief, you're already in a position to want to know more about your current belief system. You already have you're already put in a position where you would need to have some kind of justification, because you don't want to blindly follow an ideology or a religion or anything without having actual evidence or support to back that up. Because if you're going to live by something, you have to be willing to live by it 100%. In Islam, you have to submit to Allah 100%. So I feel like, even say when I was a Christian, I really didn't have any. I was asking pastors questions and getting looked at like I wasn't supposed to be asking questions. If you can't ask questions, then what truth is in that thing? You know what I mean? But with Islam, like, the faith that I've gained is so unmoving, because I'm able to ask questions. The beginning of my journey was filled with people telling me, question what you have to, because if you have any questions left, your faith isn't going to be strong. So I feel like, if you're in a position where you're struggling with your faith, or you're looking at another faith but you're scared of it, you have to be willing to be knowledgeable. You have to be sure of what you believe in. It's a very sure thing that you have to be. It's not something you just do willy nilly. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I mean, if you're struggling, figure out why you're struggling. If you have to disprove, figure out why you got to disprove. If you have to prove, figure out why you got to prove.
Mm.
It's a journey of knowledge. You can't just be on religion by, you know, because your parents are religious, or because your culture is this certain religion. You know what I mean?
100%. All right. All right. So last question. So when you decided that the system of beliefs that you had or the lifestyle that you were living was no longer yours, and that day that you woke up out of bed and said, okay, this is not for me anymore, I'm not doing this. What was the first thing that you did immediately after that? Or what was the first change you made?
In terms of Christian, getting out of Christianity or atheism.
Let's say both, because I guess they could be the same, but they could be different. So what do you think?
And like Christianity, it never really meshed with me in the first place. It was more kind of just something that I was told by my parents I had to do. So I mean, in that sense, it wasn't really like a first thing that I did. It was just kind of one day I was just like, I'm not. I don't believe in that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But in the atheism, it's definitely um, it was definitely a moment where I started to think about God a lot. And there's a saying I heard, so I forgot who said it, but it was nobody thinks about atheism more than God because you're trying to disprove God all the time. So I feel like when I was an atheist and I started to actually like I had to be like, okay, there's something, more powerful than me. I feel like it was really I started going back to church first.
Mm.
Then after again, I had to go through that whole process again of like this doesn't make sense. I really just started reading like Quran. I started reading and then I researched more about the like the ways people pray, the ways people live, what the different rules are, what the different Islamic laws are, and then finally I had to find a masjid to pray in or a masjid to visit first of all,
Mm.
and I wanted to find one that was really comfortable, that looked like I would feel safe and like just look kind of it wasn't too many people
Mm.
because I feel like if I would have gone somewhere where it's a bunch of people and I'm like uncomfortable, get anxiety or whatever, it would have ruined the situation. So I had to be ready to step into somewhere where I was able to actually take that first step and asking somebody. I don't think I'd ever met a Muslim before that, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it's really like I was by myself and just had to be like, okay, I'm gonna go. Like,
Wow. Okay.
and it just so happened I went on a Friday, I think.
Yeah.
And
It's like
then
all the connections happen.
I remember Ish at the door.
Yeah.
I was like, I've never been here. He was like, okay, and he led me to the
That's awesome.
masala, and like
That's
from
awesome.
there after the prayer I met Imam John, and then it was a good decision because I just had to you just have to leap into it like
Yeah.
that.
So I guess you just take that leap of faith, you go into it, and then you build community.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
From Javier MCC, happy Hispanic Heritage Month. If you know anybody who's curious about Islam, please invite them. If you're yourself are curious about Islam, we welcome you. We welcome anybody, and we want you to learn as much as you can. Para mi gente musulmán, assalamu alaikum. Los invito a MCC aquí en Charlotte. Y si quieren saber del Islam, también los invito. Estamos aquí en Mallard Creek a 3116 Johnston Ola Road. Mallard Creek, aquí en como Concord, Charlotte. Pero los invito.